One excavation shattered every accepted timeline overnight. Silent chambers concealed impossible artifacts that refuse logical explanation. Ancient builders achieved feats modern engineers still struggle to replicate. Hidden clues point toward astonishing truths deliberately erased from memory. Every discovery deepens uncertainty, pulling curious minds closer to revelations nobody expected awaiting beyond. The first impression of Las Haldas is one of silence. Along Peru's northern Pacific coast, where endless desert slopes meet the restless sea, the ancient settlement appears almost hidden within the landscape. Low stone platforms, weathered terraces, and broad ceremonial spaces emerge gradually from the pale sand, as though the desert has spent thousands of years trying to reclaim them. There are no towering monuments to announce its presence. Instead, Las Haldas reveals itself slowly, inviting careful observation rather than immediate admiration. Archaeologists believe the site flourished between approximately 1800 and 1200 BC, making it one of the earliest monumental centers along the Peruvian coast. Yet, its location presents an enduring puzzle. Unlike many ancient settlements that developed beside fertile river valleys, Las Haldas stood in one of the driest environments on Earth. Freshwater was scarce, farmland was limited, and survival would have demanded remarkable planning and cooperation. The nearby Pacific Ocean offers part of the explanation. Rich fishing grounds supplied abundant marine life, allowing coastal communities to thrive despite the harsh desert surroundings. Excavations have uncovered evidence of fish, shellfish, and seabirds that formed a substantial part of the inhabitants' diet. Archaeological discoveries also suggest that agricultural products, including cotton and cultivated plants, reached the settlement through exchange with inland communities, revealing an interconnected network that stretched far beyond the coastline. Even with these practical explanations, questions remain. Las Haldas contains carefully designed ceremonial architecture, including plazas, stairways, elevated platforms, and enclosed gathering spaces constructed over many generations. Such projects required organization, shared beliefs, and skilled labor. But who coordinated these efforts? What rituals unfolded within these silent courtyards? Without written records, researchers can only reconstruct fragments of a much larger story. Some scholars view Las Haldas primarily as a ceremonial center that drew visitors from surrounding regions for seasonal gatherings and religious observances. Others believe it supported a permanent population with an increasingly complex social structure. Both interpretations fit much of the available evidence, yet neither fully explains why such an ambitious center emerged in a landscape seemingly so hostile to large-scale settlement. Beyond academic research, more speculative ideas continue to circulate. Some suggest the site's builders possessed an unusually advanced understanding of coastal resources and environmental cycles that has yet to be fully appreciated. Others wonder whether the arrangement of certain structures reflects astronomical observations or ceremonial alignments whose original meaning has been lost over time. While these ideas remain unproven, they reflect the enduring sense that Las Haldas still guards unanswered questions. The desert itself adds another layer to the mystery. Wind continually shifts the sand, exposing forgotten walls before covering them once again. Each archaeological season uncovers new details, while reminding researchers how much remains concealed beneath the surface. Standing above the quiet shoreline, surrounded by ruins shaped by both human hands and relentless time, one cannot help but wonder whether the greatest discoveries at Las Haldas have yet to emerge, or whether its deepest secrets were always meant to remain buried beneath the desert. If Las Haldas reminds us that even the harshest landscapes can conceal remarkable chapters of human history, our journey now carries us far from the Pacific coast to another place where sand has preserved stories that refuse to fade. Here, in the calm waters of the Arabian Gulf, an island quietly holds the traces of civilization separated by thousands of years, yet somehow connected through the timeless rhythm of trade, belief, and survival. Failaka Island rises gently from the sea, its flat terrain offering little hint of the extraordinary past buried beneath its surface. Winds sweep across its open plains, carrying fine dust over ruined temples, ancient foundations, and forgotten streets. Today, much of the island feels still and almost untouched, but beneath that silence lies evidence of countless generations who once regarded this small piece of land as a vital crossroads between distant worlds. Archaeological discoveries reveal that people settled on Failaka Island as early as the Bronze Age. During the Dilmun civilization, the island occupied an important position within extensive maritime trade networks, linking Mesopotamia with lands farther east. Merchants, sailors, craftsmen, and travelers would have arrived by sea, bringing goods, languages, beliefs, and ideas that transformed the island into a thriving center of exchange. Centuries later, another chapter unfolded. Following the campaigns of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, Greek influence reached the island. The settlement became known as Ikaros, a name believed to have been inspired either by Greek tradition or by similarities noticed by Alexander's successors. Archaeologists have uncovered Hellenistic temples, defensive structures, inscriptions, and artifacts that illustrate the remarkable blending of Greek customs with long-established local traditions. Yet many questions remain unanswered. Why did such a relatively small island become so significant to multiple civilizations across different eras? Geography explains part of the story. Its position offered a natural stopping point along busy maritime routes. Freshwater sources and sheltered anchorages made it attractive to traders navigating the Gulf, but practical advantages alone may not fully account for the island's enduring importance. Some researchers believe Failaka served not only as a commercial hub, but also as a place of religious significance, where temples welcomed travelers seeking protection before continuing dangerous voyages. Others suggest the island acted as a diplomatic meeting ground where diverse cultures exchanged more than merchandise, sharing myths, rituals, and knowledge that left subtle marks on each civilization that passed through. Beyond conventional interpretations, more speculative ideas occasionally emerge. Some independent writers have proposed that undiscovered ceremonial complexes still lie buried beneath layers of sand, waiting to reshape current understanding of the island's role in the ancient world. Others wonder whether submerged ruins rest offshore, hidden beneath centuries of changing coastlines and sediment. While no convincing evidence has confirmed these possibilities, the island's long occupation leaves room for discoveries yet to be made. Excavations continue to uncover pottery, seals, coins, sculptures, and fragments of everyday life. But each discovery seems to deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. Every layer belongs to a different age, another civilization, another people who found meaning on this isolated island before eventually disappearing into history. Standing among the weathered stones as the sea stretches toward the horizon, it becomes difficult to ignore the feeling that Failaka Island has always been more than a simple settlement. It is a place where civilizations briefly intersected before moving on, leaving only fragments behind. And somewhere beneath the quiet earth, perhaps the next excavation will reveal why this small island continued to draw the ancient world back to its shores for thousands of years. Across the broad plains of modern-day Iraq, a massive mound of ancient brick dominates the horizon. Even after centuries of erosion, Birs Nimrud commands attention. Layers of sun-baked mud brick rise unevenly toward the sky, while the remains of vitrified, blackened bricks near its summit seem almost frozen in the aftermath of an unimaginable event. From a distance, the structure appears less like a ruin and more like the skeleton of something that once challenged the heavens. Archaeologists identify Birs Nimrud as the remains of an ancient ziggurat in the city of Borsippa, located southwest of Babylon. The monument is widely believed to have been dedicated to Nabu, the Mesopotamian god associated with wisdom, writing, and knowledge. Although its earliest foundations may date back many centuries, much of the visible structure was restored or rebuilt during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BC, when Babylon stood among the greatest cities of the ancient world. The ziggurat was never intended to be a tower in the modern sense. Like other Mesopotamian temple towers, it served as a sacred bridge between earth and the divine, with ascending terraces symbolizing a gradual approach toward the realm of the gods. Religious ceremonies likely unfolded around its base, while only select priests may have climbed its upper levels. Yet, Birs Nimrud is remembered for more than its historical purpose. For generations, travelers and local traditions associated the ruin with the legendary Tower of Babel. Its immense size, damaged summit, and scorched appearance seem to echo ancient stories describing humanity's attempt to build a tower reaching heaven before divine intervention brought confusion and ruin. Although most historians and archaeologists now conclude that Babylon's central ziggurat, Etemenanke, is a more likely inspiration for that tradition, the connection to Birs Nimrud has never entirely disappeared. The darkened bricks near the summit have fueled further curiosity. Scientific studies suggest that intense heat, possibly caused by lightning strikes, accidental fires, or the collapse of kiln-fired sections, altered portions of the structure over time. Even so, early visitors imagined something far more dramatic. Some believed the tower had been struck directly by a supernatural force, leaving behind visible evidence of divine judgment embedded within the stone itself. Other theories move in different directions. A handful of independent researchers have wondered whether the monument's unusual construction techniques or astronomical orientation hint at purposes beyond ritual worship. Could the upper terraces have served as observation platforms for tracking celestial events? Were certain architectural features designed to align with significant stars or seasonal cycles? While archaeology acknowledges the astronomical interests of Mesopotamian civilizations, no definitive evidence supports more extraordinary interpretations. Excavations have answered many questions about Borsippa's history, yet the monument continues to inspire reflection rather than certainty. Every surviving brick carries traces of rebuilding, destruction, and renewal across thousands of years. The line between documented history and enduring legend remains remarkably thin. Standing before the fractured summit of Birs Nimrud, it becomes easy to understand why this lonely ruin has captivated explorers, scholars, and storytellers alike. Whether viewed as a sacred temple, the echo of an ancient legend, or simply the weathered remains of a forgotten civilization, it still invites the same quiet question that has lingered for centuries. How much of its original story disappeared long before the first archaeologist ever arrived? In the highlands of central Turkey, where fresh spring water emerges from the earth and feeds the surrounding countryside, an extraordinary stone monument rises from the edge of a tranquil pool. Known as Eflatunpınar, it appears almost dreamlike. Massive, carved blocks stand in careful balance, their weathered surfaces reflecting in the still water below. Even after more than 3,000 years, the monument seems less like a ruin and more like a sacred threshold between the natural world and something beyond ordinary understanding. Eflatunpınar dates to the Late Bronze Age and is generally attributed to the Hittite civilization, one of the most influential powers of the ancient Near East. Built around the 13th century BC, the structure is unlike most surviving Hittite monuments. Rather than serving as a fortress or palace, It was constructed directly beside a natural spring, suggesting that the flowing water itself held profound religious significance. The monument consists of large stone blocks decorated with carefully carved figures arranged in symmetrical tiers. Human forms stand alongside divine beings, winged creatures, and symbolic motifs associated with Hittite belief. At its center appear deities believed to represent the storm god and the sun goddess, figures who played central roles within the Hittite pantheon. Together, they seem to oversee the spring, as though blessing the life-giving waters that have flowed continuously for countless generations. Yet, many aspects of Eflatunpınar remain uncertain. Unlike temples enclosed within city walls, this sanctuary stands in an open landscape, separated from any major Hittite settlement. Why was such a monumental structure built here? Was the spring already regarded as sacred long before the monument appeared? Or did the Hittites deliberately transform an ordinary source of water into a place of ceremony and pilgrimage? Archaeologists generally believe Eflatunpınar functioned as an open-air religious sanctuary dedicated to rituals connected with water, fertility, and royal authority. Water occupied a central place in Hittite religion, symbolizing purification, renewal, and divine favor. Seasonal ceremonies may have taken place here, with priests, officials, and local communities gathering beside the spring to honor the gods and ensure prosperity for the land. Even so, the monument continues to raise difficult questions. Its engineering demonstrates remarkable precision. Enormous stone blocks were transported, shaped, and assembled without modern machinery, while the spring itself was carefully integrated into the monument's design. The flowing water does not merely surround the structure. It becomes part of its meaning. Whether viewed from nearby or reflected across the pool, stone and water appear inseparable. Some researchers have suggested that the monument's orientation may hold astronomical significance, though definitive evidence remains elusive. Others wonder whether the carvings preserve symbolic knowledge that modern scholars have only partially deciphered. The layered arrangement of deities and mythical beings may represent more than artistic decoration, perhaps illustrating a Hittite vision of the universe, where the heavens, the earth, and the waters beneath existed in delicate balance. Beyond academic discussion, more speculative ideas have occasionally emerged. A few independent writers have proposed that Eflatunpınar was built upon an even older sacred site whose origins have been lost to time. Others imagine that additional ceremonial structures remain buried nearby, concealed beneath centuries of soil and vegetation. While excavations have revealed important details about the surrounding area, much of the landscape remains only partially explored, leaving room for further discoveries. Perhaps the greatest mystery lies not in what has been found, but in what has endured. The spring continues to flow just as it did when Hittite craftsmen placed the first stones into position. Civilizations have risen and disappeared, languages have faded, and kingdoms have become distant memories, yet the water never stopped. Standing beside the quiet pool today, surrounded by weathered carvings whose meanings are only partly understood, one cannot help but wonder whether Eflatunpınar still reflects the same sacred landscape its builders once saw, or whether the most important chapter of its story remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting for someone to read the ancient stones in an entirely new way. High above the western shoreline of the Dead Sea in Palestine, an immense rock plateau rises abruptly from the surrounding desert. Its steep cliffs appear almost impossible to climb, their sheer faces catching the changing light from sunrise to sunset. From below, the summit seems unreachable. From above, it commands an uninterrupted view across barren valleys, shimmering salt flats, and distant mountains. Upon this natural fortress stand the remarkable ruins of Masada, a place where silence carries the weight of history. Long before it became the focus of one of antiquity's most famous sieges, Masada served as a strategic stronghold. During the reign of Herod the Great in the late 1st century BC, the isolated plateau was transformed into an extraordinary fortified palace. Massive defensive walls surrounded luxurious residences, storerooms, bathhouses, workshops, and an intricate system of enormous cisterns capable of collecting and storing precious rainwater. In one of the driest regions on Earth, such engineering reflected remarkable planning and ambition. The location itself was carefully chosen. Its towering cliffs offered natural protection, while narrow pathways limited access from below. To ancient builders, Masada was more than a royal retreat. It was a sanctuary of last resort, designed to withstand both the harsh desert climate and the threat of invasion. Its most enduring story emerged decades later. According to the 1st century historian Josephus, Masada became the final refuge of a group resisting Roman rule after the destruction of Jerusalem. Roman forces eventually surrounded the plateau, constructing camps and an enormous siege ramp that can still be seen today. After months of determined effort, the attackers finally reached the summit. What they reportedly found has echoed through history ever since. Josephus wrote that rather than surrender, the defenders chose death over captivity, leaving the fortress almost silent when Roman soldiers entered. It is one of the most powerful and debated accounts from the ancient world. Archaeological excavations have confirmed many aspects of the siege itself, including the camps, walls, and remarkable assault ramp. Yet the dramatic final events described by Josephus remain the subject of ongoing discussion among historians. Did the events unfold exactly as recorded, or did later retellings shape the story into something larger than history alone? The ruins themselves offer clues but rarely complete answers. Burned buildings, scattered artifacts, fragments of everyday objects, and ancient inscriptions reveal the lives of those who once occupied the fortress. Yet, archaeology cannot fully reconstruct individual choices, emotions, or final moments. Beyond established history, Masada has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some visitors speak of an unusual stillness that settles over the plateau after sunset, when the desert winds move through empty chambers and abandoned storerooms. Others have wondered whether undiscovered chambers remain hidden beneath collapsed structures, preserving artifacts untouched since antiquity. While archaeological investigations continue to expand our understanding of the site, no evidence has confirmed these more imaginative possibilities. Even the fortress itself continues to surprise researchers. Advances in surveying technology have revealed new architectural details and construction methods, reminding us that familiar monuments can still reveal unexpected information. Every excavation uncovers another fragment of daily life, another piece of a puzzle assembled across centuries. Standing atop the cliffs of Masada, surrounded by vast desert and endless silence, it becomes difficult to separate physical evidence from enduring memory. The stones preserve traces of remarkable engineering and documented conflict, yet they also carry questions that no excavation may ever completely resolve. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not simply what happened here, but how one isolated fortress continues to inspire debate, reflection, and wonder long after its walls fell quiet. From a distance, Túcume appears almost unreal. Dozens of broad earthen pyramids rise from the dry landscape like natural hills, their weathered slopes blending so completely with the surrounding terrain that they seem to have grown from the earth itself. At the heart of the complex stands Cerro La Raya, a solitary mountain overlooking the ancient city as it has for centuries. Together, the pyramids and the hill create a scene that feels suspended between history and legend. Located in Peru's Lambayeque Valley, Túcume is one of the largest adobe archaeological complexes in South America. Archaeologists believe the city was founded around AD 1000 by the Lambayeque, or Sican, culture, before later becoming an important center for the Chimu civilization and, eventually, the Inca Empire. Rather than replacing one another completely, these societies left overlapping layers of architecture and tradition, transforming Túcume into a place where centuries of history coexist within a single landscape. The site contains more than 20 major pyramids, along with plazas, ceremonial courtyards, administrative compounds, and residential areas. Built primarily from adobe bricks, these enormous structures were never intended to resemble the stone pyramids of Egypt. Instead, they functioned as platforms supporting temples, elite residences, and spaces where political authority and religious ceremony became closely intertwined. Yet, one question continues to puzzle researchers. Why were so many monumental structures concentrated in a single location? Its position within a fertile valley certainly offered practical advantages. Rivers descending from the Andes supported agriculture, while regional trade connected Túcume with distant communities along the coast and inland. Even so, the sheer scale of construction suggests that something beyond economic prosperity inspired generations of builders to reshape the landscape. Many archaeologists believe Cerro La Raya played a central role in the city's identity. The mountain may have been regarded as a sacred landmark, with the surrounding pyramids carefully arranged to reflect its spiritual importance. Across the ancient Andes, mountains were often viewed as living beings connected to powerful forces of nature, and Túcume may have been designed as both a ceremonial center and a symbolic bridge between the earthly and the divine. Excavations have revealed elaborate murals, ceremonial offerings, finely crafted pottery, metal objects, and evidence of ritual activity. Some discoveries also point to human sacrifice, suggesting that certain ceremonies were performed during moments of political change or environmental crisis. These findings offer valuable insight into the beliefs of the people who lived here, yet they also deepen the mystery surrounding the city's religious life. Local traditions have preserved stories that add another dimension to the landscape. For generations, Cerro La Raya has been associated with powerful spirits and supernatural guardians. Some residents have long believed the mountain should be approached with respect, describing unusual lights, unexplained sounds, or an overwhelming sense of presence after nightfall. While such accounts belong to folklore rather than archaeology, they illustrate how the site continues to inspire reverence long after its ancient civilizations disappeared. Other speculative ideas occasionally emerge as well. A few independent researchers have suggested that undiscovered tunnels may connect some of the pyramids beneath the surface, while others wonder whether much of the city still lies buried beneath the centuries of drifting sand and collapsed adobe. Although archaeological surveys continue to uncover new structures, large portions of Túcume remain only partially explored, leaving many possibilities open for future investigation. Standing among the immense adobe pyramids as evening shadows stretch across the valley, it becomes clear that Túcume is more than a collection of ancient buildings. It is a landscape shaped by successive civilizations, enduring beliefs, and unanswered questions. Every pyramid preserves another fragment of a forgotten world, and every excavation reveals only part of a story that may still extend far beneath the desert floor, waiting patiently for its next chapter to emerge. Amid the rolling countryside of Menorca, surrounded by low stone walls, open fields, and winds shaped by the Mediterranean Sea, a solitary monument rises with remarkable simplicity. Known as the Naveta de Tudons, its outline resembles an overturned boat resting upon the earth. Massive limestone blocks fit together without mortar, forming smooth, gently curving walls that have survived thousands of years of changing seasons. At first glance, it appears almost timeless, as though it has always belonged to the landscape. The name itself reflects its distinctive appearance. Naveta comes from the Catalan word for a small boat, an appropriate description for a structure whose builders intentionally created a form unlike almost any other prehistoric monument in Europe. Despite its graceful shape, however, this was never a vessel meant for the sea. Instead, it was built to carry something far more permanent. Archaeologists identify the Naveta des Tudons as a collective funerary monument dating to roughly 1200 BC and used until around 750 BC. Constructed during the Bronze Age by the Taliotic culture of Minorca, it served as a communal tomb where generations of individuals were carefully laid to rest. Excavations carried out during the 20th century uncovered the remains of more than 100 people, along with personal ornaments, bronze objects, buttons made from bone, ceramic vessels, and traces of ritual offerings. The monument's interior is surprisingly sophisticated. A narrow entrance leads into two superimposed chambers connected by carefully designed passages. Every stone was selected and positioned with extraordinary precision, despite the absence of mortar or advanced construction technology. Even after more than 3 millennia, much of the structure remains remarkably stable, a testament to the engineering knowledge of its unknown builders. Yet, many aspects of the Naveta des Tudons remain uncertain. Why did the people of Bronze Age Minorca choose this distinctive architectural form? Across prehistoric Europe, burial traditions varied enormously. Some communities raised earthen mounds. Others built stone chambers or carved tombs into cliffs. Here, however, the builders created something entirely unique. Was the boat-like shape symbolic? Did it represent a journey into another world? A passage across invisible waters separating life from death? Or was its form inspired by practical building techniques that later acquired sacred meaning? Without written records, archaeology can offer only careful interpretation. Researchers generally believe the monument functioned as both a burial place and a ceremonial space where communities honored their ancestors. The repeated use of the tomb over several centuries suggests that memory itself played an important role. Families likely returned generation after generation, adding new burials while maintaining a connection with those who had come before. The structure became more than a resting place. It became a physical expression of continuity, identity, and collective remembrance. Its orientation has also attracted scholarly interest. Some studies have examined whether the entrance aligns with particular seasonal events or celestial observations, although no universal agreement has emerged. The possibility remains intriguing because many prehistoric societies incorporated astronomical knowledge into ceremonial architecture. Whether intentional or coincidental, the relationship between the monument and the surrounding landscape continues to invite investigation. Beyond established archaeology, local tradition has preserved a very different explanation for its existence. According to an old Minorcan legend, 2 giants fell in love with the same woman. To win her hand, one giant began digging an enormous well, while the other built this remarkable stone monument. As the builder placed the final stone upon the roof, news arrived that his rival had successfully reached water first. Overcome with despair, the giant is said to have thrown the last stone into place before taking his own life. The tale cannot explain the monument's true origins, but it reveals how deeply the Naveta des Tudons has become woven into the island's cultural memory. Other, more speculative theories occasionally appear outside mainstream archaeology. Some independent writers have proposed that the structure's precise geometry reflects forgotten mathematical knowledge passed through prehistoric Europe. Others wonder whether additional ceremonial monuments remain buried beneath nearby fields, hidden beneath centuries of accumulated soil. Modern archaeological surveys continue to expand understanding of Minorca's prehistoric landscape. and new discoveries suggest that many ancient settlements and ritual sites remain only partially explored. Across the dry coastal plains of Peru, where the desert stretches between the Pacific Ocean and the foothills of the Andes, a vast ancient settlement rests almost silently beneath the sun. Broad pyramids rise from the valley floor. Circular plazas lie hidden among layers of earth, and carefully planned structures reveal the presence of a society that existed long before many of the civilizations traditionally associated with cities and monuments. This is Caral, a place that has transformed our understanding of the ancient world. Located in the Supe Valley, north of modern-day Lima, Caral is considered one of the oldest known urban centers in the Americas. Archaeologists estimate that it flourished between approximately 3000 and 1800 BC, making it roughly contemporary with some of the earliest civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Yet, unlike those regions, Caral developed without many features that scholars once believed were necessary for the rise of complex societies. There are no signs of large-scale warfare, no evidence of powerful armies, and no discovered system of writing. Instead, Caral appears to have grown around cooperation, ceremony, trade, and shared cultural practices. The city covers a remarkable area, containing monumental structures such as large platform mounds, sunken circular plazas, residential areas, and public buildings. The largest pyramid complex, known as the Pyramida Mare, dominates the settlement and demonstrates an extraordinary ability to organize labor. Thousands of people must have contributed to the construction of these massive earth and stone formations, suggesting a highly coordinated society with specialized knowledge. But how did such a civilization emerge in one of the driest regions on Earth? The answer may lie with the ocean. The nearby Pacific coast provided abundant marine resources, especially fish and shellfish, which likely supported the population and allowed communities to dedicate time and effort toward monumental projects. Researchers believe Caral was connected to a wider network of coastal and inland settlements, where goods such as cotton, plants, and marine products were exchanged. Yet the true nature of Caral's society remains one of its greatest mysteries. Archaeologists have found evidence of musical instruments, including flutes made from animal bones, suggesting that ceremonies and communal gatherings played a central role in daily life. The presence of large plazas indicates spaces designed for collective experiences rather than private power alone. Unlike later civilizations dominated by kings and military expansion, Caral seems to represent a different model, one where religion, ritual, and social organization created unity. Still, many questions remain unanswered. Who were the leaders who organized these enormous construction projects? How were decisions made among thousands of people without evidence of writing or centralized warfare? Did Caral have rulers, priests, or another form of authority that is left behind no clear record? Some researchers have suggested that the alignment of certain structures may reflect careful observations of celestial cycles, allowing the inhabitants to track seasons and agricultural patterns. While ancient societies throughout the world often connected architecture with the movements of the sky, the exact meanings behind Caral's designs remain open to interpretation. Beyond mainstream archaeology, more speculative ideas have also appeared. Some independent researchers have proposed that Caral preserves traces of an even older knowledge tradition, suggesting that its builders inherited ideas from earlier unknown communities. Others wonder whether undiscovered settlements buried beneath the surrounding landscape could reveal a longer and more complex story of human development along the Peruvian coast. These possibilities remain unconfirmed, but they reflect the enduring fascination created by a civilization that appeared with remarkable sophistication. The mysteries of Caral are made even more compelling by what is missing. There are no royal tombs filled with treasures, no monumental statues celebrating rulers, and no written accounts explaining its purpose. Instead, the city speaks through its architecture alone, leaving archaeologists to reconstruct an entire worldview from stones, soil, artifacts, and carefully arranged spaces. Standing among the ancient pyramids of Caral, surrounded by the quiet desert winds that have crossed this valley for thousands of years, it becomes clear that this was not simply an abandoned settlement. It was an idea made physical, a vision of community, ceremony, and human cooperation preserved in earth and stone. Yet, beneath the layers already uncovered, countless questions remain. How much more of Caral's story is still waiting beneath the desert surface, and what might future discoveries reveal about the first cities of the Americas? High in the southern Andes of Peru, where the landscape rises into rugged mountains and the air becomes thin and quiet, the ruins of Raqchi stretch across a broad plateau overlooking the Vilcanota River. Massive stone walls stand against the open sky, their carefully fitted blocks contrasting with the surrounding fields and distant peaks. Among the remains, one structure dominates the site, an enormous temple with walls that once reached towards the heavens, creating a monument unlike almost anything else built in the Inca world. Known as the Temple of Wiracocha, Raqchi was one of the most important ceremonial centers of the Inca Empire. Located near the modern town of San Pedro de Cacha, the site reflects the remarkable engineering abilities of Inca builders, who combined finely carved stone foundations with towering adobe walls. Even after centuries of abandonment, the surviving remains reveal the scale and ambition of the people who created this sacred place. The temple itself was extraordinary. Its central wall rose more than 20 meters high, supported by a series of massive columns and surrounded by carefully planned spaces. Unlike many Inca temples constructed entirely from stone, Raqchi used a distinctive combination of materials, with polished stone forming the lower sections and enormous adobe surfaces extending upward. Why did the builders choose this unusual design? Was it simply a response to local materials, or did the structure carry a deeper symbolic meaning? According to Inca tradition, the site was connected with Wiracocha, a powerful creator deity believed to have shaped the world and brought order to existence. Some historical accounts describe Raqchi as a place of pilgrimage where ceremonies honored this divine figure. Travelers may have arrived from distant regions, bringing offerings and participating in rituals that reinforced connections between communities and the sacred landscape. Archaeological evidence supports the importance of the site. Excavations have uncovered storage facilities, ceremonial areas, residential structures, and evidence that large numbers of people may have gathered here. The presence of hundreds of storage buildings suggests that Raqchi was not only a religious center but also an important administrative and economic location within the empire. Yet, many questions remain. How exactly did the ceremonies of Raqchi unfold? What sounds filled the massive temple courtyard? What prayers, songs, or rituals accompanied the movement of pilgrims through this sacred landscape? Without written records from the Inca perspective, researchers must rely on architecture, artifacts, and early colonial descriptions to reconstruct a world that disappeared after the arrival of Europeans. The site's connection with natural forces has also attracted attention. Raqchi sits within a landscape shaped by volcanoes, mountains, and powerful geological activity. Some researchers believe the placement of sacred sites throughout the Andes often reflected relationships between human settlements and important natural features. Did the builders choose this location because of its spiritual significance? Or was the landscape itself considered a living presence that required respect and recognition? Beyond established archaeology, more speculative interpretations have occasionally emerged. Some independent researchers have suggested that the unusual proportions of the Temple of Wiracocha may contain hidden astronomical meanings or reflect advanced knowledge of seasonal cycles. Others wonder whether parts of the site preserve traditions inherited from civilizations that existed before the Inca. While these ideas remain debated and lack strong archaeological confirmation, they demonstrate how Raqchi continues to inspire curiosity. The mystery is deepened by the destruction that followed the Spanish conquest. Many sacred places across the Andes were damaged, abandoned, or transformed as new religious systems replaced older traditions. Raqchi survived in fragments, leaving behind only traces of the ceremonies and beliefs that once gave the site its meaning. Today, the Great Walls stand quietly above the valley, their stones and adobe surfaces shaped by time, weather, and memory. The remains of Raqchi reveal a civilization capable of extraordinary organization, engineering, and spiritual expression. Yet the voices of those who built it are gone, leaving behind only the silent architecture of their beliefs. As the mountain winds pass through the remains of the ancient temple, one question continues to linger. Was Raqchi simply a remarkable monument of the Inca Empire? Or does its design still conceal a deeper understanding of the relationship between humanity, the heavens, and the unseen forces that shaped the Andean world? Deep within the rugged valleys of southern Georgia, where steep cliffs rise above the Mekvari River, an extraordinary city appears to emerge from the mountain itself. From a distance, Vardzia looks almost like a natural formation, a series of openings and terraces carved into the rock face. But as the landscape draws closer, the true scale of the site becomes visible. Hundreds of chambers, tunnels, halls, and hidden passages extend deep into the stone, revealing the remains of one of the most remarkable medieval settlements ever created. Vardzia was built during the 12th century AD, during the reign of the Georgian king George III and his daughter Queen Tamar, one of the most influential rulers in Georgian history. Originally designed as both a religious center and a defensive refuge, the complex was carved into the slopes of Mount Erusheti, creating a vast underground city that could shelter thousands of people. The scale of the construction is difficult to comprehend. At its height, Vardzia contained living quarters, storage rooms, wine cellars, meeting halls, passageways, and places of worship. A central feature of the complex is the Church of the Dormition, a richly decorated cave church containing faded frescoes, including images of Queen Tamar and other important figures of the Georgian royal family. These paintings provide rare glimpses into the world of medieval Georgia, where religion and political power were deeply connected. Yet the true purpose of Vardzia has long inspired debate. Was it primarily a monastery devoted to spiritual life, or was it a fortress designed to protect the population during times of invasion? The answer may be both. Located near important routes through the Caucasus, Vardzia occupied a strategically significant position. Its hidden chambers and concealed entrances offered protection, while its churches and monastic spaces created a center of religious devotion. The natural landscape played a crucial role in its design. Instead of building outward across the valley, the creators of Vardzia carved inward, transforming solid rock into a functioning city. Water channels were carefully engineered through the mountain, providing essential supplies to residents. Such planning required extraordinary knowledge of geology, architecture, and long-term survival. But even this remarkable achievement carries unanswered questions. How did medieval builders organize such a massive excavation project? How many workers were involved? What methods allowed them to create hundreds of interconnected spaces inside a mountain without modern equipment or technology? Historical records provide some answers, but many details remain uncertain. In 1283, a powerful earthquake struck the region, destroying a large portion of Vardzia and exposing many of its hidden chambers to the outside world. What was once a protected underground refuge became an open cliffside complex. Later invasions and political changes further reduced its importance, leaving behind the haunting remains visible today. The earthquake itself has contributed to the site's mystery. Some observers have wondered whether additional chambers remain sealed deep within the mountain, untouched since the medieval period. Archaeological research has identified many sections of the complex, yet the possibility of undiscovered spaces continues to capture imagination. Could hidden rooms still preserve forgotten manuscripts, artifacts, or traces of daily life from the people who once lived there? Beyond archaeological research, more speculative ideas have also surrounded Vardzia. Some suggest that the complex may have incorporated older sacred locations that existed before the medieval monastery was built. Others believe its underground design reflects ancient traditions of creating spiritual spaces within mountains, where the natural world and the divine were thought to meet. These interpretations remain unproven, but they reveal the powerful atmosphere that continues to surround the site. Today, Vardzia stands as a reminder of a civilization that transformed an impossible landscape into a place of worship, refuge, and human connection. The empty corridors still preserve traces of footsteps, voices, and prayers that disappeared centuries ago. Walking through its narrow tunnels and silent chambers, it becomes difficult to see Vardzia as merely a collection of carved rooms. It feels more like a memory preserved inside the mountain itself. Yet despite everything archaeologists have uncovered, the full story of this hidden city remains incomplete. How many secrets still remain within the depths of the rock, waiting for time, technology, or chance to reveal what has been concealed for centuries? High within the mist-covered mountains of Peru, above the winding valleys and beneath the towering presence of the Andes, a single carved stone rests in quiet isolation. Surrounded by the terraces and temples of Machu Picchu, the Intihuatana stands with a strange sense of purpose. Its smooth surfaces and carefully cut angles appear simple at first, yet every edge seems deliberate, every line connected to the landscape around it. For centuries, this mysterious stone has drawn the attention of archaeologists, historians, and visitors who wonder what role it truly played in the world of the Inca. The name Intihuatana comes from the Quechua language and is often translated as the place where the sun is tied, or the hitching post of the sun. Although this interpretation is widely used today, the exact meaning of the original term and its ceremonial significance remain subjects of discussion. What is certain is that the Inca considered the sun, known as Inti, one of the most important forces in their spiritual universe. The Intihuatana at Machu Picchu is carved from a single piece of stone that rises from the natural bedrock. Unlike many monuments created by stacking separate blocks, this object appears to have been shaped directly from the mountain itself. Its central carved pillar and surrounding surfaces suggest careful observation of shadows, sunlight, and seasonal changes. For many researchers, the most accepted explanation is that the Intihuatana functioned as an astronomical and ceremonial device. The Inca were skilled observers of the sky, using the movement of the sun, moon, and stars to organize agricultural cycles, religious festivals, and important events. At certain times of the year, the position of the sun creates distinctive patterns of light and shadow around the stone. Could this have allowed Inca priests to track the changing seasons? The Andes were an environment where timing was essential. Planting and harvesting depended on understanding climate patterns, rainfall cycles, and the relationship between the earth and the heavens. A monument that marked important solar events would have carried both practical and spiritual importance. The Intihuatana may have served as a place where knowledge, religion, and observation merged into one. Yet, the mystery deepens when considering the symbolic meaning behind the stone. For the Inca, mountains, rivers, and natural formations were not simply physical features. They were living elements connected through a sacred system known as the concept of waka, places or objects believed to hold spiritual power. A carefully carved stone within a sacred mountain sanctuary may have represented a meeting point between the human world and divine forces, Rather than being merely an instrument for measuring sunlight, the Intihuatana may have been a symbolic anchor connecting the earthly realm with the movements of the cosmos. However, the absence of written records leaves many questions unanswered. What ceremonies took place around the stone? Who was allowed to approach it? Did only priests and members of the elite interact with it? Or did ordinary visitors also participate in rituals there? The Inca preserved knowledge through oral traditions, architecture, textiles, and ceremonies, but much of that knowledge was disrupted following the Spanish conquest. The damage caused during that period also contributed to the mystery surrounding the Intihuatana. Many Inca sacred objects and sites were destroyed, altered, or reinterpreted under a new religious system. At Machu Picchu, the remote location helped preserve many structures that might otherwise have disappeared, allowing modern researchers to study fragments of a world that was largely lost. Over time, the Intihuatana has attracted interpretations beyond mainstream archaeology. Some researchers have proposed that the stone may have possessed deeper astronomical functions, perhaps reflecting complex relationships between celestial movements and the surrounding mountains. Others have suggested that its location within Machu Picchu was chosen because of unique energy patterns or spiritual qualities associated with the landscape. These ideas are not supported by strong archaeological evidence, but they continue to appear because the monument seems to invite questions beyond simple explanation. Why was this particular stone carved with such precision? Why was it positioned in this specific location among the peaks? And why did the Inca invest such effort into shaping a single piece of rock when countless other practical challenges surrounded them? Archaeologists continue to examine the Intihuatana through modern techniques, studying its geometry, orientation, and relationship with other structures at Machu Picchu. These investigations have revealed more about Inca planning and engineering, yet each discovery seems to add another layer of complexity. The stone's survival itself is remarkable. Centuries of earthquakes, weather, and human intervention have transformed Machu Picchu, but the Intihuatana remains standing. Its edges have softened with time, yet its purpose remains sharp in the imagination of those who encounter it. Some visitors describe a powerful atmosphere around the monument, a feeling created perhaps by its location, its history, or the knowledge that generations of people once gathered here with beliefs that were deeply connected to the natural world. Whether this sensation comes from spiritual significance, historical awareness, or simply the extraordinary beauty of the Andes is impossible to measure. What can be measured is the skill of the builders who created it. The Inca transformed stone into architecture, architecture into symbolism, and symbolism into a lasting connection between human life and the universe above. Yet, the final meaning of the Intihuatana may never be completely recovered. The stone remains silent, offering evidence but no explanation. It tells us that the Inca understood their world through relationships between mountains, stars, seasons, and sacred places, but it does not reveal every secret behind those beliefs. Standing before the Intihuatana, as clouds move across the peaks of Machu Picchu, one question remains suspended like the shadow of the stone itself. Was this ancient monument simply a remarkable tool for observing the sun, or was it something far more profound, a physical expression of humanity's ancient desire to understand its place within the vast universe? In the rolling hills of Jalisco, Mexico, surrounded by volcanic landscapes, forests, and fertile valleys, an unusual ancient city rests beneath the open sky. From a distance, the structures of Guachimontones appear almost unlike any other archaeological site in the Americas. Instead of towering pyramids with sharp edges, the landscape is shaped by circular stepped platforms, wide ceremonial plazas, and unusual cone-shaped structures that rise gently from the earth. Known as the Guachimontones Archaeological Complex, this extraordinary site was built by the Tuchitlan tradition, a civilization that flourished in western Mexico approximately between 300 BC and AD 900. For centuries, little was known about this society. Unlike the Maya or Aztec civilizations, the people of Teuchitlan left behind no widely recognized written records, no famous rulers preserved in historical texts, and no monumental cities described by ancient chroniclers. Their story had to be recovered from the earth itself. The most distinctive feature of Guachimontones is its circular architecture. The site contains several large circular ceremonial complexes, each consisting of a central cone-shaped platform surrounded by a circular plaza and smaller structures around the edges. These designs are unlike the rectangular temples found in many other Mesoamerican regions, suggesting that the people of Teuchitlan developed their own unique way of expressing religious beliefs, social organization, and connection with the cosmos. At the center of these circles stood tall poles, according to archaeological evidence and later interpretations. Researchers believe these may have been used for a ritual known as the volador ceremony, in which performers climbed a pole and descended while rotating through the air. Although the exact practices of ancient Teuchitlan communities remain uncertain, this connection suggests that movement, height, and the relationship between humans and the sky may have played an important role in their ceremonies. But why did this civilization build in circles? The answer may lie in their understanding of the universe. Many ancient cultures viewed circular forms as powerful symbols of cycles, the movement of the sun, the changing seasons, life and death, and the repeating patterns of nature. At Guachimontones, the circular plazas may have created spaces where communities gathered to participate in ceremonies that reinforced social bonds and shared beliefs. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of residential areas, tombs, pottery workshops, and agricultural activity surrounding the ceremonial centers. These findings reveal that Guachimontones was not simply a religious site. It was a living community where daily life and spiritual practice existed side by side. Yet many questions remain. Who organized the construction of these enormous circular monuments? How did leaders maintain cooperation among large populations without leaving behind clear evidence of centralized power? Was the site controlled by a ruling class, religious specialists, or a network of communities working together? The absence of written records makes these questions especially difficult to answer. Excavations have revealed shaft tombs beneath some structures, containing offerings and human remains. These discoveries provide clues about beliefs surrounding death and ancestry. The people of Teuchitlan appear to have maintained strong connections with their ancestors, perhaps viewing burial spaces as places where the living and the deceased remained connected. The volcanic landscape surrounding Guachimontones may have also influenced its development. The region contains dramatic geological features, fertile soil, and natural resources that supported agriculture and settlement. Some researchers believe the placement of the site was connected to the surrounding mountains and landscape, reflecting a worldview in which geography itself carried spiritual meaning. Beyond mainstream archaeology, the unusual design of Guachimontones has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some independent researchers have suggested that the circular structures may represent sophisticated astronomical knowledge, with their arrangements reflecting observations of celestial cycles. Others wonder whether the site preserves traditions inherited from even earlier cultures whose traces remain undiscovered. While these ideas remain debated and lack strong archaeological confirmation, they highlight the fascination created by a civilization whose symbols are still not fully understood. The mystery deepens when considering the disappearance of the Teuchitlan tradition. Around the end of the first millennium AD, the region experienced major changes. Many ceremonial centers were abandoned, and the architectural style that defined Guachimontones gradually disappeared. Researchers continue to debate the causes. Environmental changes, shifting trade networks, political transformations, or social disruptions may all have contributed. Yet, the exact reasons remain uncertain. What happened to the people who built these circles? Did they migrate to new regions, carrying their traditions with them? Did their beliefs transform into new forms that survived among later communities? Or did a unique way of seeing the world simply fade away, leaving only stone platforms and fragments of pottery behind? Today, Guachimontones stands as one of Mexico's most intriguing archaeological landscapes. The restored circles reveal impressive engineering, but the deeper meaning behind them remains partially hidden. The builders left behind structures that clearly required planning, cooperation, and imagination. Yet they left few direct explanations for why they created them. Walking through the circular plazas as the surrounding hills rise beyond the horizon, it becomes easy to imagine ancient gatherings taking place here. Music filling the air, ceremonies unfolding beneath the sun, and communities gathering around structures designed to connect earth and sky. But the voices of those people have vanished. The stones remain, arranged in patterns that hint at forgotten beliefs and lost traditions. And perhaps the greatest mystery of Guachimontones is not how these circles were built, but what the builders hoped to communicate through them. Were they monuments to the heavens, expressions of social unity, or symbols of a deeper knowledge now beyond our reach? The answer may still lie hidden beneath the soil, waiting for future discoveries to reveal what this remarkable circular city was truly meant to represent. Amid the flat, tropical landscape of northern Yucatan, where dense vegetation stretches across ancient limestone terrain, the ruins of Dzibilchaltún emerge quietly beneath the sun. At first glance, the site may appear like many other Maya settlements scattered across the peninsula, but within its plazas, temples, and carefully aligned structures lies evidence of a civilization deeply connected to the movements of the heavens. The name Dzibilchaltún is often translated as the place where there is writing on stones, a reference to the inscriptions and carved monuments found throughout the site. For thousands of years, this ancient city served as an important center of Maya life, developing from an early settlement into one of the longest occupied urban areas in the Maya world. Archaeologists believe Dzibilchaltún was first established around 700 BC, with its greatest periods of growth occurring much later during the Classic and Post-Classic Maya eras. Unlike some Maya cities hidden deep within forests, Dzibilchaltún occupied a strategic location near the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Its proximity to the sea allowed connections with coastal trade routes, while nearby water sources supported a large population in a region where natural rivers are rare. The city expanded across a vast area, containing thousands of structures, including residential compounds, plazas, temples, and ceremonial buildings. Yet, among all these remains, one structure has captured the imagination of researchers and visitors for generations. Known as the Temple of the Seven Dolls, this small but carefully designed building has become the symbolic heart of Dzibilchaltún. The temple received its unusual name after archaeologists discovered 7 small clay figurines buried within the structure during excavations. These objects may have had ritual significance, although their exact purpose remains uncertain. Were they offerings placed to honor the building? Representations of important figures? Symbols connected to Maya beliefs about fertility, ancestors, or the cosmos? No single explanation has been proven. What makes the temple especially remarkable is not only what was found inside it, but how it interacts with the rising sun. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight passes directly through the temple's doorway, illuminating the interior in a dramatic display of alignment between architecture and astronomy. This phenomenon has made Dzibilchaltún one of the most discussed examples of Maya knowledge of solar cycles. For the Maya, astronomy was not simply a scientific pursuit. The movements of the sun, moon, and planets were connected with agriculture, ceremonies, political authority, and the structure of the universe itself. A building that marked important moments in the solar calendar would have carried deep meaning. But questions remain. Was the Temple of the Seven Dolls designed specifically as an astronomical observatory? Or was its alignment part of a broader religious symbolism that modern observers only partially understand? Did the Maya use such structures to measure time, communicate with their gods, or reinforce the connection between rulers, nature, and the cosmos? Researchers generally agree that Dzibilchaltún demonstrates sophisticated planning and astronomical awareness. However, the exact intentions of its builders remain difficult to reconstruct because the Maya worldview was expressed through symbols, rituals, and traditions that changed over centuries. The site itself offers more mysteries beyond the famous temple. Dzibilchaltún contains an enormous open plaza known as the Central Plaza, surrounded by platforms and buildings that reveal the importance of public gatherings. Archaeologists have discovered thousands of burials throughout the settlement, suggesting that ancestors played a significant role in the spiritual landscape of the city. The dead were not simply placed away from the living, they remained part of the community's identity and memory. Water also appears to have been central to the city's existence. The nearby cenotes, natural limestone sinkholes filled with groundwater, provided essential resources and may have carried religious importance. Across the Maya world, cenotes were often viewed as sacred entrances to another realm, places where offerings could be presented and connections with supernatural forces could be established. Beyond accepted archaeology, Dzibilchaltún has inspired more speculative interpretations. Some researchers outside mainstream archaeology have suggested that the precise solar alignments found at the site may represent knowledge far more advanced than previously recognized. Others wonder whether the city preserves astronomical traditions inherited from even earlier cultures whose influence has not yet been fully understood. These ideas remain controversial, and archaeological evidence continues to favor explanations rooted in Maya observation, ritual practice, and cultural development. Still, the fascination remains. How did Maya architects calculate these alignments with such precision? What methods allowed them to create buildings that interacted with sunlight in predictable ways across centuries? And what other structures within the vast settlement may hold similar connections that have not yet been discovered? Like many ancient sites, Dzibilchaltún changed over time. The city experienced periods of growth, decline, and transformation as political powers shifted throughout the Maya world. By the time European explorers arrived in the region, the great ceremonial activity of Dzibilchaltún had already faded, leaving behind only fragments of a once thriving civilization. Yet the ruins continue to communicate. The stones, plazas, and temples reveal a society that carefully observed its environment and created architecture that reflected its understanding of existence. The people of Dzibilchaltún did not separate science, religion, and daily life in the way modern societies often do. For them, the movement of the sun was not merely a natural event. It was part of a larger story connecting humanity, the earth, and the forces that shaped the universe. Standing before the Temple of the Seven Dolls, as sunlight enters its ancient doorway, the scene feels almost like a message preserved across time. The builders are gone, their voices silent, and much of their knowledge remains incomplete. Yet the alignment remains exactly where they left it, waiting beneath the Yucatan sky. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Dzibilchaltún is not how its people understood the sun, but what deeper meaning they saw in the endless relationship between light, stone, and time, and how many more secrets of their vanished world may still be waiting within the ancient city. Beneath the fertile landscape of El Salvador, surrounded by green fields and the distant presence of volcanic mountains, An ancient village rests hidden beneath layers of earth. At first glance, there is little to suggest that anything extraordinary lies below the surface. No towering pyramids rise above the landscape. No massive temples announce a forgotten civilization. Instead, Joya de Cerén reveals something far more intimate. The preserved remains of ordinary homes, kitchens, tools, and personal belongings belonging to people who lived more than 1,000 years ago. Often called the Pompeii of the Americas, Joya de Cerén offers one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries in the Western Hemisphere. Unlike many ancient sites that preserve only monuments belonging to rulers and elites, this settlement provides a rare window into everyday life. It shows how common Maya farmers lived, worked, prepared food, worshipped, and organized their communities. The village was inhabited around the 6th century A.D., during the classic Maya period. At that time, the Maya world was filled with powerful cities, complex political systems, and impressive architectural achievements. Yet, Joya de Cerén was not a royal center. It was a small agricultural community located in the Zapotitan Valley, where families cultivated crops and built homes using local materials. The story of how the village was preserved begins with the nearby Loma Caldera volcano. Around AD 600, volcanic activity suddenly transformed the landscape. A series of eruptions released layers of ash that buried the settlement, covering buildings and possessions beneath a protective blanket. Unlike a destructive collapse that would scatter or destroy everything, the ash preserved many details of daily life with extraordinary precision. When archaeologists discovered the site in the late 20th century, they found structures remarkably similar to the moment they were abandoned. Homes still contained storage areas, household tools, grinding stones, ceramic vessels, and food remains. Gardens surrounding the houses preserved evidence of plants and agricultural practices. Even footprints left in the volcanic material revealed the movement of people attempting to respond to the approaching disaster. But the greatest mystery may not be what was preserved. It is what happened in the moments before the eruption. Archaeological evidence suggests that the inhabitants had enough warning to escape. Unlike some catastrophic events where entire populations were trapped, no large collection of human remains has been discovered at Joya de Cerén. The absence of bodies raises important questions. How quickly did the villagers understand the danger? What did they choose to take with them? Did they believe they would return? Perhaps they expected the disaster to pass. Perhaps they left believing their homes would still be waiting when the danger ended. The preserved remains provide clues about their lives. Researchers have uncovered evidence of farming, including maize, cacao, and other crops. They have found tools used for cooking, construction, and agriculture. These discoveries reveal a community that was not defined by monuments or rulers, but by ordinary routines repeated day after day. The site challenges the way ancient civilizations are often remembered. For generations, archaeology focused heavily on temples, palaces, and elite burials. Joya de Cerén tells a different story. It demonstrates that understanding a civilization also requires understanding the homes of ordinary people, the spaces where families ate, worked, rested, and created their own traditions. Yet, even this extraordinary preservation leaves unanswered questions. How large was the community surrounding Joya de Cerén? Were there additional homes, ceremonial spaces, or agricultural areas that remained buried nearby? Did the volcanic disaster preserve only one small part of a much larger settlement network? Researchers continue to investigate the surrounding landscape, using modern archaeological techniques to search beneath the soil. Each discovery adds another piece to the picture, but the full story of the village remains incomplete. The eruption itself has also inspired curiosity beyond conventional archaeology. Some observers have wondered whether the precise preservation of Joya de Cerén represents a rare example of nature accidentally creating an archaeological time capsule. Others have speculated that undiscovered areas of the site may contain additional evidence that could transform our understanding of rural Maya communities. While these possibilities remain open for investigation, the accepted explanation remains grounded in geology and archaeology. A volcanic event buried the village and preserved it through unusual conditions. Still, the atmosphere of the site encourages deeper reflection. Walking among the remains of Joya de Cerén, it becomes easy to imagine the sounds that once filled this place. The preparation of meals, the conversations between neighbors, the movement of children, the work of farmers tending crops beneath the tropical sun. These were not people who expected to become part of an archaeological mystery. They were simply living ordinary lives. And then, in a matter of hours, everything changed. The ash that destroyed their settlement also protected it. A moment of disaster became a gift to future generations, allowing archaeologists to recover details that would normally disappear with time. The village became a message preserved unintentionally, a record written not by kings or historians, but by the people themselves through the objects they left behind. Today, Joya de Cerén remains one of the most human archaeological sites in the world. Its importance does not come from enormous monuments or forgotten treasures, but from the quiet evidence of daily existence. The remains remind us that history is not only found in grand achievements. It also exists in simple tools, family spaces, and the routines of people whose names were never recorded. Yet, beneath the layers of volcanic earth, many questions remain. Are there still undiscovered homes waiting below the surface? Could future excavations reveal more about the lives of the villagers who fled this place centuries ago? And how many other forgotten communities remain hidden beneath the landscapes of the ancient world, waiting for the earth to reveal their stories? High in the Andes of Peru, where mountains rise sharply around the ancient heartland of the Inca Empire, a network of stone passages and hidden corridors rests in the shadows of one of the most important sacred landscapes in South America. Known as Chinkana, these mysterious formations have long captured the imagination of explorers, historians, and visitors searching for traces of a forgotten world. The word Chinkana comes from the Quechua language and is often associated with the idea of a maze, labyrinth, or place of hidden passages. Across the Cusco region, the name has been applied to several locations, but the most famous examples are found near the ancient ceremonial complex of Sacsayhuaman, overlooking the city of Cusco. There, among enormous stone formations and carefully constructed walls, visitors encounter narrow openings, carved spaces, and unusual rock features whose original purposes remain debated. At first glance, these structures appear simple. A tunnel disappears beneath stone. A small opening leads into darkness. A carved surface suggests human effort, yet the surrounding landscape makes it difficult to determine exactly what was created by people and what was shaped by natural forces over centuries. This uncertainty is what has allowed Chinkana to become one of the most intriguing mysteries associated with the Inca world. Archaeologists generally believe that many Chinkana features were connected to religious practices, ceremonial activities, or the natural sacred landscape known to the Inca as a place filled with huacas, objects, locations, or formations believed to possess spiritual significance. The Inca did not separate the natural world from the sacred. Mountains, caves, springs, and unusual rock formations could all represent connections between humans, ancestors, and powerful forces beyond ordinary life. Caves and underground spaces held particular importance. In Andean traditions, openings in the earth were often viewed as entrances to hidden realms connected with origins, ancestors, and spiritual forces. The Inca origin stories themselves include references to people emerging from sacred places. A passage into the ground was not simply an architectural feature. It could represent a transition between different levels of existence. But what exactly was Chinkana used for? Some researchers suggest that certain passages may have served as ritual locations where priests performed ceremonies away from public view. Others believe they may have been associated with water channels, astronomical observations, or symbolic journeys connected to religious beliefs. The challenge is that the Inca left behind no written explanations describing these specific structures, leaving archaeologists to interpret their meaning through physical evidence and comparisons with other known traditions. The mystery becomes deeper when considering the legends surrounding Chinkana. Local stories have described hidden tunnels extending beneath Cusco, sometimes claiming that secret passages connected major temples, palaces, or sacred locations across the region. Some legends even speak of treasures concealed underground during times of conflict, particularly after the arrival of the Spanish. These stories have circulated for centuries, blending historical events with imagination and folklore. Are these tales based on forgotten realities, or are they simply the natural result of a landscape filled with mysterious stone formations? Modern archaeological investigations have not confirmed the existence of vast underground networks connecting distant sites. However, the Andes are filled with complex landscapes where ancient construction, natural caves, and geological formations often overlap. This makes separating fact from legend a challenging task. Beyond accepted interpretations, more speculative theories have also emerged. Some independent researchers have suggested that Chinkana represents evidence of advanced ancient engineering techniques that remain poorly understood. Others have proposed that certain passages may have been designed according to hidden astronomical principles, reflecting a deeper relationship between the Inca and celestial cycles. While these ideas remain outside mainstream archaeology, they continue to attract attention because the Inca civilization demonstrated remarkable achievements in architecture, astronomy, and landscape engineering. The connection between Chinkana and the nearby site of Sacsayhuaman adds another layer of fascination. Sacsayhuaman itself is famous for its enormous stone blocks, some weighing many tons, fitted together with extraordinary precision. The relationship between the visible structures above ground and the hidden spaces below has encouraged questions about whether the landscape was designed as a unified sacred system. Did the Inca intentionally create a network where mountains, stones, and underground spaces work together as part of a larger spiritual design? Or are modern observers searching for patterns that the original builders never intended? This question reflects one of the greatest challenges in archaeology. Ancient societies often left behind physical evidence without leaving behind their own explanations. Modern researchers must interpret the remains through careful study, but some meanings may have been tied to beliefs, ceremonies, and traditions that disappeared centuries ago. Chinkana also carries a sense of mystery because of what remains unknown. How many hidden spaces exist beneath the mountains around Cusco? Are there forgotten chambers still sealed by time and natural collapse? Could future discoveries reveal new information about Inca rituals and their understanding of the landscape? The Andes have always been a place where the physical and spiritual worlds were deeply connected. For the Inca, a mountain was not merely a mountain, and a cave was not merely a cave. The landscape itself carried memory, power, and meaning. Today, the passages of Chinkana remain quiet. The footsteps of priests, travelers, and ancient inhabitants have disappeared, leaving only stone and shadow behind. Whether these formations were sacred chambers, symbolic pathways, natural wonders, or something still misunderstood, they continue to invite the same question that has followed them for generations. What lies beyond the visible stones of Chinkana, and how much of the ancient world beneath the Andes is still waiting to be discovered? High above the mist-covered valleys of Peru, where the ruins of Machu Picchu rest between towering green peaks, a carefully shaped stone structure overlooks the ancient citadel. Known as the Torreón, or Temple of the Sun, this curved tower stands apart from the surrounding terraces and walls. Its smooth stonework follows the natural shape of the mountain, creating a structure that appears to emerge from the earth itself. At first glance, the Torreón seems like a small architectural feature within the vast complexity of Machu Picchu. Yet, its location, design, and connection with sunlight have made it one of the most intriguing places within the entire sanctuary. Unlike defensive structures or ordinary buildings, the Torreón appears to have been created for a more symbolic purpose, one connected with the spiritual and astronomical traditions of the Inca. Machu Picchu was constructed during the 15th century AD, most likely under the reign of the Inca ruler Pachacuti, who transformed the Inca state into one of the most powerful civilizations in the Americas. Built high in the Andes, the site combined royal residences, agricultural terraces, ceremonial spaces, and sacred locations. Every structure was carefully positioned within the surrounding landscape, reflecting the Inca belief that architecture, nature, and the cosmos were deeply connected. The Torreón represents this relationship clearly. Its circular shape is unusual among Inca buildings. The walls curve gracefully around a natural rock formation, with finely cut stones fitted together without mortar. Large windows open toward the surrounding mountains, allowing sunlight to enter the chamber at specific times of the year. This precision has led many researchers to believe that the Torreón was connected to astronomical observations and religious ceremonies. One of the most discussed features is the way sunlight interacts with the structure during the June solstice. At this time, sunlight enters through a carefully positioned window and illuminates a sacred stone inside. For the Inca, who followed the movements of the sun with great attention, such alignments were not merely practical measurements. They represented a relationship between the earthly world and Inti, the sun deity who held a central place in their belief system. But the exact role of the Torreón remains uncertain. Was it an observatory used by priests to track important solar events? Was it a temple where ceremonies honored the sun? Or did it serve another purpose connected to royal power and sacred geography? Archaeologists generally consider it a religious structure, possibly associated with ceremonies performed by the Inca elite. Some interpretations suggest that the cave beneath the Torreón, known as the royal tomb, may have increased the site's importance by connecting the structure with ancestors and sacred spaces. However, the name royal tomb comes from early interpretations rather than confirmed evidence that an Inca ruler was buried there. This uncertainty reveals one of the greatest challenges in understanding Machu Picchu. The Inca left behind extraordinary architecture, but no written explanations describing the purpose of each building. Their knowledge was preserved through oral traditions, rituals, and practices that changed dramatically after the Spanish conquest. Modern researchers must therefore reconstruct meaning from stone, orientation, artifacts, and comparisons with other known Inca sites. The Torreón has also attracted more speculative interpretations. Some researchers outside mainstream archaeology have suggested that its unusual design may contain hidden astronomical knowledge beyond simple solar tracking. Others wonder whether the structure was positioned according to deeper relationships between mountains, stars, and sacred energy within the landscape. These ideas remain debated and lack strong archaeological evidence, but they reflect the powerful impression created by a structure where every stone appears carefully considered. The surrounding environment adds another layer of mystery. The Torreón is not isolated from Machu Picchu's larger design. It exists within a landscape where mountains were considered sacred beings known as apus. The peaks surrounding the citadel were not simply geographic features. They were part of a living spiritual system. The placement of temples, terraces, and pathways throughout Machu Picchu suggests that the Inca designed the entire site as a relationship between human construction and the natural world. Could the Torreón have been created as a point where these relationships became visible? Perhaps the structure served as a place where priests observed the sun rising over specific mountain peaks, marking important moments in the agricultural and ceremonial calendar. Perhaps it represented a symbolic connection between the heavens above, the mountains around it, and the ancestors beneath the earth. Or perhaps its true meaning belonged to a level of Inca thought that has been lost forever. The passage of time has changed the Torreón. Weather, earthquakes, and centuries of exposure have altered the appearance of the stones, while the traditions that once gave the structure meaning have disappeared. Yet its fundamental design remains, preserving the decisions of builders who understood stone, landscape, and the movement of the sun with extraordinary skill. Today, visitors standing inside the Torreón often experience something difficult to describe. It may come from the silence of the surrounding mountains, the precision of the architecture, or the awareness that the people who created this place saw the world through a very different lens. The Torreón is not mysterious because it lacks explanations. Archaeology has revealed much about Inca engineering and belief. It is mysterious because every answer seems to open another question. Why was this exact location chosen? What ceremonies once filled this circular chamber? What knowledge guided the builders as they aligned stone with sunlight and mountains? As clouds move through the peaks surrounding Machu Picchu, and the same sun continues its ancient path across the sky, the Torreón remains exactly where the Inca placed it, a silent observer of centuries passing. And perhaps its greatest secret is not hidden within the stones themselves, but within the lost understanding of the people who shaped them. High in the Andes of Peru, more than 4,000 meters above sea level, a vast and windswept plateau stretches beneath an endless sky. The landscape is harsh, yet strangely beautiful, covered with enormous stone formations shaped by centuries of exposure to rain, ice, and powerful mountain winds. Some resemble human faces, animals, or figures standing silently across the highlands. This is Marcahuasi, a remote and mysterious plateau that has fascinated explorers, researchers, and visitors for generations. Located in the province of Huarochirí, east of Lima, Marcahuasi is not a traditional archaeological city or a known center of an ancient empire. Unlike Machu Picchu or other famous Andean sites, it does not contain clear temples, written inscriptions, or large-scale architecture. Instead, its mystery comes from the stones themselves, their unusual forms, their isolated location, and the questions surrounding how they came to exist. The plateau is composed mainly of volcanic rock formations created through natural geological processes. Over millions of years, erosion shaped the stone into remarkable forms, carving surfaces that sometimes appear to resemble familiar figures. Scientists explain these shapes through the slow work of wind, water, temperature changes, and the natural weaknesses within the rock. Yet, for many observers, the formations seem too precise to be explained only by nature. The human mind has always searched for recognizable patterns in unfamiliar landscapes. Across the world, people have found faces and figures hidden within mountains, cliffs, and stones. This phenomenon, known as pareidolia, explains why natural formations can appear to contain deliberate images. At Marcahuasi, however, the scale and variety of the formations have encouraged deeper questions. Could every shape be a coincidence created by nature? Or could some of the stones have been influenced by human hands long ago? This question has made Marcahuasi one of the most debated mysterious landscapes in Peru. The most widely accepted scientific view is that the majority of the formations are natural. Geological studies support the idea that volcanic activity and erosion created the unusual shapes visible across the plateau. There is currently no strong archaeological evidence proving that ancient civilizations carved the stones into their present forms. However, the human connection to Marcahuasi cannot be completely ignored. The Andes have long been a region where mountains and unusual natural features held spiritual importance. Ancient Andean cultures often considered certain landscapes sacred, viewing mountains, caves, springs, and remarkable rock formations as places where the physical and spiritual worlds connected. Even if the stones of Marcahuasi were naturally formed, it is possible that ancient communities recognized their importance and incorporated them into local traditions. Some visitors and researchers have suggested that the plateau may have served as a ceremonial or sacred location. They point to the unusual arrangement of formations, the powerful atmosphere of the landscape, and stories passed down through local communities. However, without clear archaeological evidence, these interpretations remain possibilities rather than established conclusions. The mystery surrounding Marcahuasi grew significantly in the 20th century through the work of Peruvian explorer Daniel Russo. In the 1950s, Russo proposed that some of the formations were not natural creations, but ancient sculptures made by an unknown civilization. He believed the plateau contained evidence of a forgotten culture far older than those recognized by conventional archaeology. Russo's ideas attracted international attention, but they also faced criticism from many scholars. Most geologists and archaeologists have not accepted the claim that the formations were carved by an advanced, prehistoric society. They argue that natural erosion provides a more likely explanation for the shapes observed across the plateau. Still, the debate continues because Marcahuasi occupies a unique position between science and imagination. Beyond the question of whether the stones were carved, another mystery remains. Why does this isolated plateau inspire such strong reactions from those who visit? The environment itself may provide part of the answer. At extreme altitude, surrounded by silence and vast mountain horizons, Marcahuasi creates an atmosphere unlike ordinary landscapes. The thin air, changing weather, and enormous stone formations create a sense of isolation that can feel almost otherworldly. For centuries, humans have attached meaning to places that appear separated from the ordinary world, and Marcahuasi continues this tradition. Some visitors and researchers have suggested that the plateau may have served as a ceremonial or sacred location. They point to the unusual arrangement of formations, the powerful atmosphere of the landscape, and stories passed down through local communities. However, without clear archaeological evidence, these interpretations remain possibilities rather than established conclusions. The mystery surrounding Marcahuasi grew significantly in the 20th century through the work of Peruvian explorer Daniel Russo. In the 1950s, Russo proposed that some of the formations were not natural creations, but ancient sculptures made by an unknown civilization. He believed the plateau contained evidence of a forgotten culture far older than those recognized by conventional archaeology. Russo's ideas attracted international attention, but they also faced criticism from many scholars. Most geologists and archaeologists have not accepted the claim that the formations were carved by an advanced prehistoric society. They argue that natural erosion provides a more likely explanation for the shapes observed across the plateau. Still, the debate continues because Marcahuasi occupies a unique position between science and imagination. Beyond the question of whether the stones were carved, another mystery remains. Why does this isolated plateau inspire such strong reactions from those who visit? The environment itself may provide part of the answer. At extreme altitude, surrounded by silence and vast mountain horizons, Marcahuasi creates an atmosphere unlike ordinary landscapes. The thin air, changing weather, and enormous stone formations create a sense of isolation that can feel almost otherworldly. For centuries, humans have attached meaning to places that appear separated from the ordinary world, and Marcahuasi continues this tradition. Some have also explored possible astronomical connections. Certain formations are said by enthusiasts to align with celestial events or represent symbolic relationships with the stars. While ancient Andean societies certainly possessed sophisticated astronomical knowledge, no definitive evidence has confirmed that Marcahuasi was intentionally designed as an astronomical site. Yet the possibility remains intriguing. The Andes were home to civilizations that carefully observed the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. They built monuments aligned with celestial cycles and developed calendars connected to agriculture and ritual. Could Marcahuasi have held some forgotten significance within this broader tradition? Or are modern observers simply finding meaning in a landscape shaped by natural forces? These questions reveal why the plateau remains so fascinating. Marcahuasi exists in a space between certainty and mystery. Geology explains how the rocks formed, but it cannot explain every cultural story connected to them. Folklore preserves memories of sacred landscapes, but it does not always reveal their original meanings. Archaeology searches for evidence, yet some landscapes leave behind impressions rather than artifacts. The plateau also raises larger questions about how humans understand the natural world. When ancient people looked upon unusual stones and mountains, did they see the same shapes modern visitors see today? Did they recognize familiar figures in the landscape and assign them spiritual significance? Or did these formations hold meanings completely different from anything we can imagine? Standing among the massive stones of Marcahuasi, with clouds moving across the high Andes and the distant valleys disappearing below, the landscape seems to invite contemplation rather than provide answers. The formations may be the result of millions of years of natural processes, or they may represent a relationship between humans and the environment that has not yet been fully understood. Either way, Marcahuasi continues to challenge the boundary between what is known and what is imagined. Its stones remain silent, shaped by time and surrounded by stories. And as researchers continue to study the plateau, one question remains open. Are these ancient-looking figures simply the artwork of nature, or do they preserve traces of a forgotten connection between humanity, the mountains, and the mysteries hidden within the earth itself? As the echoes of history lead us deeper into the forgotten corners of the world, we now turn toward a landscape where stone, memory, and mystery seem to exist in the same space. Hidden among the lush mountains of West Java, Indonesia, beneath layers of green vegetation and volcanic soil, lies a site that has challenged the way some people think about the ancient past. On a quiet hillside overlooking the surrounding valleys stands Gunung Padang. At first glance, it appears almost ordinary. A series of stone terraces rise along the slope of a mountain, surrounded by forests and mist-covered peaks. The air is cool, the landscape peaceful, and the stones themselves seem like fragments of a distant civilization slowly being reclaimed by nature. But as researchers began studying the site more closely, questions emerged. How old is this place? Who built it? And what purpose did it truly serve? For generations, Gunung Padang was known locally as an important cultural and spiritual site. The name itself refers to a mountain of light, or mountain of enlightenment, and local traditions have long connected the location with ancestral significance. The visible structures consist of carefully arranged volcanic stones forming terraces that climb the hillside. These stone formations are believed by many archaeologists to have been created by ancient communities in the region, likely for ceremonial or ritual purposes. The mainstream archaeological view places the construction of the visible terraces within the prehistoric period of Indonesia, possibly several thousand years ago. The builders appear to have worked with naturally occurring volcanic rock, arranging the stones into organized layers and platforms. Unlike massive monuments built from cut stone blocks in other parts of the ancient world, Gunung Padang reflects a different approach, one shaped by the materials and environment of the Indonesian landscape. But the mystery surrounding this mountain grew when researchers began investigating what might exist beneath the surface. In the early 2010s, a team of Indonesian scientists conducted geological surveys at Gunung Padang using methods such as ground-penetrating radar, seismic testing, and soil analysis. Their findings suggested that the visible terraces might not represent the entire structure. Instead, they proposed that large formations could extend beneath the ground, hidden under layers of earth and rock. According to these interpretations, Gunung Padang may consist of multiple layers of construction, with some sections buried deep beneath the surface. The possibility raised a fascinating question. Could this hillside be more than a simple collection of ancient terraces? Could it be the remains of a much larger, previously unknown structure? Some researchers involved in these studies suggested that parts of the buried structure could date back thousands of years, potentially making it far older than many well-known ancient monuments around the world. The idea captured international attention because, if proven, it would dramatically reshape our understanding of prehistoric societies in Southeast Asia. But the story is not that simple. Dating ancient structures is a difficult process, especially when dealing with geological formations, volcanic landscapes, and materials that may have existed before humans shaped them. Some archaeologists have questioned whether all of the underground layers identified in surveys are actually human-made constructions. They argue that natural volcanic processes may explain some of the formations beneath Gunung Padang. This debate highlights one of archaeology's greatest challenges: separating what was built by human hands from what was created by nature over thousands or even millions of years. The stones of Gunung Padang do not provide easy answers. There are no large inscriptions explaining who constructed the site. There are no written records describing its purpose. There are no ancient accounts telling us why people climbed this mountain and arranged these stones in such a deliberate pattern. And perhaps that silence is what makes the site so compelling. Throughout history, humans have returned to mountains as places of meaning. High places often became locations for ceremonies, spiritual gatherings, and connections between the earthly world and the unknown. Across many cultures, mountains represented something beyond their physical presence, a bridge between humanity and forces that were believed to exist beyond ordinary understanding. Could Gunung Padang have served a similar purpose? Some alternative researchers have proposed much older theories, suggesting that the site may represent evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization that existed before known civilizations in the region. These ideas often connect Gunung Padang with broader theories about lost civilizations that may have disappeared before recorded history. Such theories remain highly debated and are not accepted by the majority of archaeologists. There is currently no definitive evidence proving the existence of a forgotten advanced civilization responsible for the monument. Yet, the persistence of these ideas reveals something important about the human imagination. When confronted with ancient structures that seem unusual or incomplete, people naturally search for hidden chapters in the human story. The appeal of Gunung Padang lies not only in what may be beneath the ground, but in the questions that surround it. What if the earliest chapters of civilization are more complex than we currently understand? How many ancient sites remain unexplored beneath forests, deserts, and layers of soil? And how much of humanity's distant past has been lost simply because time has erased the evidence? At the same time, there is a quieter mystery within Gunung Padang, one that does not require extraordinary explanations. Even if future research confirms that the site is younger than some theories suggest, it would still represent an impressive achievement by ancient communities who understood their environment, organized labor, and created a place of lasting significance. The true story of Gunung Padang may ultimately be found somewhere between the known and the unknown, between the careful conclusions of archaeology and the unanswered questions that continue to surround the mountain. For now, the stones remain silent. They stand beneath the Indonesian sky, carrying traces of human effort, natural forces, and centuries of forgotten memories. And as researchers continue to examine what lies above and below the surface, one question remains. What secrets might still be waiting beneath Gunung Padang, hidden in the darkness beneath the earth? Beyond the silent stones of ancient mountains and forgotten landscapes, our journey now moves toward a place where walls rise above the clouds, guarding the remnants of a civilization that flourished far from the centers of the ancient world. Deep in the northern highlands of Peru, surrounded by steep cliffs, dense forests, and the mist of the Andes, stands a remarkable fortress-like complex that has puzzled explorers and researchers for generations. High above the Utcubamba Valley, at an elevation of more than 3,000 meters, the massive stone walls of Kuelap appear almost suspended between earth and sky. From a distance, the site seems less like a settlement built by humans and more like a forgotten city carved into the mountains themselves. Towering limestone walls stretch across the landscape, some rising more than 15 meters high, enclosing a vast area where homes, ceremonial spaces, and pathways once shaped the daily life of an ancient people. This is Kuelap. Often described as the Machu Picchu of the north, Kuelap was built by the Chachapoya civilization, a culture that developed in the cloud forests of what is now northern Peru centuries before the arrival of the Inca Empire. Known as the warriors of the clouds, the Chachapoya adapted to one of the most challenging environments on Earth, creating settlements hidden among mountains, forests, and steep valleys. Unlike many ancient cities that expanded across open plains, Kuelap was built in a place that demanded effort simply to reach. The journey itself was a challenge. The builders chose a location surrounded by natural defenses, where cliffs and difficult terrain offered protection from potential enemies. But why did they build such an enormous structure in such a remote location? The answer may begin with its design. The outer walls of Kuelap form a massive enclosure, creating a fortified appearance that has long led historians to compare it with a fortress. Within these walls are hundreds of circular stone structures, many of them believed to have been residential buildings. Their round shape is unusual when compared with many other ancient Andean settlements, where rectangular architecture was more common. The buildings likely supported a thriving community. Archaeologists believe that Kuelap may have been home to thousands of people at its peak, serving not only as a place of residence, but also as a center for ceremonies, political organization, and cultural identity. Yet, despite its impressive scale, Kuelap remains surrounded by unanswered questions. The Chachapoya left behind no written records that explain their beliefs, their leaders, or the reasons behind their architectural choices. Much of what researchers know comes from archaeology, oral traditions, and comparisons with other Andean cultures. Every stone foundation and every carefully arranged wall becomes a clue, but the full story remains incomplete. The construction itself raises remarkable questions. How did the Chachapoya transport and organize the enormous amounts of stone required to create such a massive complex? How did they coordinate the labor needed to build walls that extended hundreds of meters across a mountain ridge? And what inspired them to create such a powerful symbol of identity in one of the most difficult landscapes imaginable? The traditional explanation is that Kuelap was the result of generations of planning, cooperation, and adaptation. Ancient societies were capable of extraordinary achievements when driven by shared beliefs and communal goals. The Chachapoya understood their environment, used local materials, and developed engineering methods suited to the mountains. But the mystery deepens when considering what happened to the people who built it. For centuries, the Chachapoya maintained their own distinct culture, developing artistic traditions, burial practices, and settlements throughout the cloud forests. They created elaborate tombs hidden in cliffs, preserved the remains of ancestors, and developed a society that was both connected to and separated from neighboring civilizations. Then, in the 15th century, the expanding Inca Empire reached the region. The Incas eventually conquered the Chachapoya lands, incorporating them into their vast empire. Historical accounts suggest that the Chachapoya resisted Inca control, and some traditions describe them as fierce warriors who fought to preserve their independence. However, conquest was only the beginning of their decline. The arrival of European colonizers brought new diseases, conflict, and social disruption. Like many indigenous civilizations throughout the Americas, the Chachapoya population suffered dramatic losses. Over time, their language, traditions, and knowledge faded, leaving behind only fragments of a once powerful culture. And so, Kuelap became something like a message from a vanished world. When Spanish explorers eventually encountered the region, much of the Chachapoya civilization had already been transformed. The Great Walls remained, but the voices of the people who built them had largely disappeared. For centuries afterward, Kuelap remained relatively unknown to the outside world. Unlike other famous ancient sites of Peru, it did not receive the same attention as places like Machu Picchu. Its remote location helped preserve it, but it also kept its secrets hidden. When explorers and archaeologists began studying Kuelap more extensively in modern times, the site revealed a complex picture. It was not simply a military fortress, nor was it merely a village. It appeared to be something more layered, a place where everyday life, ceremony, identity, and protection existed together. This complexity has led some researchers and enthusiasts to wonder whether Kuelap served purposes that are still not fully understood. Could the massive walls have been more symbolic than defensive? Were they designed to protect people from enemies or to separate a sacred space from the outside world? Did the unusual circular buildings reflect practical needs, or were they connected to beliefs about nature, ancestors, and the universe? Some alternative theories have suggested that Kuelap may contain connections to much older traditions or forgotten knowledge that existed before the civilizations we recognize today. These ideas often point to the sophistication of ancient engineering and ask whether modern interpretations underestimate the abilities of ancient societies. Mainstream archaeology, however, generally explains Kuelap through the known development of Andean cultures. The Chachapoya were skilled builders, farmers, artists, and organizers. Their achievements do not require unknown civilizations or lost technologies to be remarkable. The mystery of Kuelap may lie not in who built it, but in how much we still do not know about the people who did. Because every ancient monument carries two stories. There is the story written in stone, the measurable facts, the dates, the archaeological evidence, the physical remains left behind. And then there is the story that exists in the silence between those facts, the beliefs that shaped decisions, the fears and hopes of the people who walked these pathways, the reasons they chose this mountain ridge, this design, this place above the clouds. Standing within Kuelap today, surrounded by enormous walls and the endless green of the Andes, it is easy to imagine the movement of a civilization that has long since vanished. The footsteps of builders carrying stone, the voices of families gathering inside circular homes, the ceremonies that may have taken place beneath the mountain sky. Yet the full purpose of Kuelap remains partly hidden. Was it primarily a fortress, a city, a ceremonial center, or something that combined all of these roles? Were there forgotten traditions connected to its design that disappeared with the Chachapoya themselves? The walls of Kuelap have survived centuries of change, conquest, and abandonment. They continue to stand above the valleys of Peru, holding the memory of a people whose story is still being uncovered. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not what has already been discovered, but what remains unseen, waiting in the shadows of the cloud forest, beneath the stones, and within the unanswered questions of the ancient world. As the search for the forgotten voices of the ancient world continues, our journey now returns to the high mountains of Peru, where stone structures seem to defy both time and expectation. Among the ruins of a legendary city hidden above the clouds, there is one chamber whose simplicity conceals a deeper mystery. 3 carefully carved openings look out across the surrounding landscape, creating a view that has inspired centuries of questions about architecture, symbolism, and the beliefs of the people who built it. Deep within the sacred heart of Machu Picchu stands the Temple of the Three Windows. Surrounded by massive stone walls, mist-covered peaks, and the dramatic slopes of the Andes, this structure is one of the most recognizable features of the ancient Inca site. Unlike the towering terraces and intricate stonework that dominate much of Machu Picchu, the Temple of the Three Windows possesses a quieter presence. Its power comes not from size, but from precision. 3 large trapezoidal openings are carved into a single wall of finely shaped stone. Through them, the distant mountains become framed like a living painting, connecting the architecture with the natural world beyond. At sunrise, light passes through these openings and transforms the chamber, creating an atmosphere that feels almost ceremonial. But what was this place truly meant to represent? The answer begins with the Inca civilization itself. The Inca Empire, known as Tawantinsuyu, became one of the largest and most sophisticated civilizations in the Americas before the arrival of Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century. Stretching across much of western South America, the empire connected diverse landscapes through roads, agriculture, engineering, and a highly organized social system. Machu Picchu, constructed during the 15th century, was likely built during the reign of the Inca ruler Pachacuti. Although its exact purpose remains debated, most researchers believe it served as a royal estate, ceremonial center, or sacred retreat connected to the Inca elite. Within this extraordinary mountain settlement, the Temple of the Three Windows holds a unique position. Many archaeologists believe the structure had religious significance. The openings may have been designed to frame important views of the surrounding mountains, known to the Inca as sacred beings called Apus. Mountains were not simply geographical features to the Inca. They were powerful spiritual entities connected to ancestors, weather, fertility, and the balance of the universe. From this perspective, the Temple of the Three Windows was not just a building. It was a carefully designed space where architecture, astronomy, and spirituality met. The 3 openings themselves have attracted particular attention. Some interpretations suggest they may have represented important concepts within Inca belief systems. The number 3 appears in various aspects of Andean symbolism, including connections to different levels of existence: the underworld, the earthly realm, and the upper world of the gods. However, the exact meaning of the 3 windows at Machu Picchu is not definitively known. Were they symbolic representations of a spiritual belief? Were they aligned with important astronomical events? Or were they simply part of an architectural design intended to create a connection between the sacred space and the surrounding landscape? The stones do not provide a clear answer. And this silence is part of what makes the temple so intriguing. The Inca left behind remarkable cities, roads, agricultural systems, and stone structures, yet they did not leave a written language in the form familiar to many other ancient civilizations. Much of what is known about their beliefs comes from archaeology, oral traditions, and accounts recorded after the Spanish conquest. This means that every interpretation of a place like the Temple of the Three Windows involves a careful balance between evidence and uncertainty. The construction itself raises another layer of fascination. The walls of Machu Picchu demonstrate extraordinary stonework. Many stones were shaped and fitted together without mortar, creating joints so precise that even today it is difficult to understand exactly how ancient builders achieved such accuracy with the tools available to them. The Temple of the Three Windows follows this tradition. The stones are carefully cut, arranged, and integrated into the larger design of the site. How did the Inca achieve such precision high in the Andes? How did they transport, shape, and position enormous blocks of stone on a remote mountain ridge? And how did they organize thousands of workers to create places that appear both practical and deeply symbolic? Mainstream archaeology points to generations of accumulated knowledge, skilled craftsmanship, and sophisticated engineering methods. The Inca were master builders who understood stone, landscape, and construction in ways that remain impressive today. Yet, the mystery surrounding Machu Picchu has encouraged other interpretations as well. Some alternative researchers have suggested that structures like the Temple of the Three Windows may contain knowledge far older than the Inca civilization itself. They point to the precision of the stonework and the apparent harmony between architecture and astronomy as evidence of forgotten techniques or ancient traditions that may have been inherited from earlier cultures. These ideas remain debated and are not supported by the majority of archaeologists, who view Machu Picchu as a remarkable achievement of the Inca Empire. Still, such theories continue to capture the imagination because they raise a broader question. How much do we truly understand about the origins and development of ancient knowledge? The Andes are filled with places where the boundaries between history and mystery seem unusually close. Long before the Inca rose to power, other civilizations built impressive settlements throughout the region. Cultures such as the Chavin, Nazca, Moche, and Tiwanaku developed complex religious traditions, artistic styles, and engineering skills. The Inca themselves were not isolated creators. They inherited, adapted, and transformed knowledge from the societies that came before them. Could the Temple of the Three Windows reflect this long chain of cultural memory? Perhaps the structure was not only a creation of the Inca period, but also part of a much older relationship between humans and the mountains. Perhaps the windows were designed to focus attention not only outward toward the landscape, but inward toward ideas about existence, creation, and humanity's place within the natural world. Another mystery lies in the name itself. The structure is traditionally called the Temple of the Three Windows, but this name was given by modern researchers based on its appearance. The original Inca name, if one existed, has been lost. We do not know what the builders called this place. We do not know the words they used to describe its purpose. A name survives, but the original meaning has disappeared. This is a recurring theme in the study of ancient sites. Modern visitors often experience these places through the lens of the present, assigning descriptions to structures whose original voices have been silent for centuries. The Temple of the Three Windows invites us to consider what is missing. What ceremonies took place here? Who stood inside this chamber and looked through these openings toward the mountains? Were these windows designed to mark moments in the sky, to honor sacred landscapes, or to represent ideas that were understood only by the people who created them? Perhaps the most fascinating possibility is that the temple was never meant to be understood in a single way. Ancient sacred spaces often served multiple purposes. They could be places of observation, worship, political authority, and connection with the natural world all at once. To the Inca, there may have been no separation between science, spirituality, and the environment. A window was not merely an opening in a wall, it was a connection between stone and sky, between humans and mountains, between the visible world and the mysteries beyond it. Today, visitors who stand before the Temple of the Three Windows experience only a small fragment of what once existed. The voices, rituals, and beliefs of the people who built it have faded into history, leaving behind only traces carved into stone. The three openings still face the Andes just as they did centuries ago. They continue to frame the same mountains, the same sky, and the same changing light. But the questions remain. Were these windows simply architectural features, or were they designed to reveal something deeper about the Inca understanding of the universe? And beneath the silence of these ancient stones, what other meanings might still be waiting to be uncovered? Leaving behind the mist-covered peaks of the Andes, our search for forgotten civilizations now moves northward, toward a landscape where stone ruins rise from the dry valleys of central Mexico. Here, far from the great cities that dominate popular images of the ancient world, an abandoned complex stands on a rocky plateau, surrounded by cliffs, desert vegetation, and endless skies. At first glance, it appears almost like the remains of a fortress from another age. Massive walls climb the hillside. Stone platforms stretch across the terrain. Stairways lead upward toward structures that once carried the footsteps of a people whose history remains only partially understood. This is La Quemada. Located in the state of Zacatecas, Mexico, La Quemada is one of the most intriguing archaeological sites in Mesoamerica. Built on a dramatic hilltop overlooking the surrounding valleys, the complex contains terraces, pyramidal platforms, plazas, ceremonial structures, and enormous defensive walls. Its elevated position gives the site a commanding view of the landscape, creating the impression of a place built not only to be inhabited, but also to be seen. For centuries, the ruins stood as a silent reminder of a civilization that had disappeared long before modern explorers reached the region. But who built La Quemada? Why was such an impressive settlement created in this remote area? And what caused the people who raised these massive stone structures to eventually abandon them? These questions have made La Quemada one of Mexico's enduring archaeological mysteries. The history of the site begins more than 1,000 years ago, during a period when different civilizations were rising and changing throughout Mesoamerica. Unlike famous centers such as Teotihuacan or the Maya cities of the south, La Quemada developed in a region often considered part of the cultural frontier between central Mesoamerica and the societies of northern Mexico. This location may have been both its strength and its challenge. The people who built La Quemada created an impressive settlement adapted to a difficult environment. The surrounding landscape was not a fertile tropical region with abundant rainfall. Instead, the inhabitants faced a semi-arid climate where survival required careful management of resources. Archaeologists believe that the builders used terraces, reservoirs, and agricultural techniques to make life possible in this demanding environment. The site appears to have been carefully planned, with architecture arranged around ceremonial and public spaces. Yet, the identity of the people who built it remains uncertain. For many years, some legends connected La Quemada with the ancient civilizations of the north, while others suggested links to famous cultures from central Mexico. Some early interpretations even associated the site with the legendary homeland of the Aztecs, known in tradition as Aztlan. However, modern archaeological research has shown that these connections are unlikely. The site predates the rise of the Aztec Empire, and there is no clear evidence that La Quemada was the legendary place described in later traditions. Instead, researchers generally associate the site with regional cultures that flourished in northern Mesoamerica during the first millennium AD. These communities developed their own architectural styles, social systems, and traditions, many of which remain only partially understood. And this uncertainty is what makes La Quemada so fascinating. Unlike civilizations that left behind extensive written records, the people of this region left fewer direct clues about their beliefs and identity. Their story must be reconstructed from stone, artifacts, architecture, and the landscape itself. Every wall becomes evidence. Every staircase becomes a question. The design of La Quemada reveals a society capable of significant organization. The construction of its massive terraces and platforms required planning, labor, and cooperation. Large amounts of stone had to be collected, shaped, and placed across the mountain ridge. How did this community organize such an ambitious project? Was La Quemada built by a powerful ruling class seeking to demonstrate authority? Was it a sacred place designed for ceremonies, or did its location serve a more practical purpose, such as protecting inhabitants from conflict with neighboring groups? The answer may involve all of these possibilities. One of the most striking features of La Quemada is its defensive appearance. Thick walls, elevated structures, and narrow access points suggest that protection was an important consideration. The site overlooks important routes through the region, and its position would have provided a strategic advantage. This has led some researchers to believe that La Quemada may have been a regional center connected to trade, politics, and military activity. But the image of a fortress alone may not tell the entire story. Within the complex are spaces that appear to have been used for ceremonies and public gatherings. The careful arrangement of plazas and platforms suggests that the site was also a place of social and spiritual importance. In ancient Mesoamerican societies, architecture often carried multiple meanings. A structure could be a political symbol, a religious space, and a reflection of humanity's relationship with the cosmos at the same time. Perhaps La Quemada was not simply built to defend people from outside threats. Perhaps it was built to represent order in a world where survival depended on understanding both nature and society. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding La Quemada is its abandonment. At some point around the 9th or 10th century AD, the site was no longer occupied in the same way. The reasons remain debated. Environmental changes may have played a role. Population pressures, changing trade networks, or regional conflicts may also have contributed. But the exact story of the departure remains unclear. The people who built La Quemada did not leave behind a final message explaining why they walked away. They simply disappeared from the site, leaving behind empty plazas and silent walls. This disappearance has encouraged speculation. Some alternative interpretations suggest that La Quemada may have been connected to unknown migrations, forgotten civilizations, or lost traditions that existed beyond the historical record. These ideas often focus on the sophistication of the architecture and the mystery surrounding the people who created it. However, archaeologists generally explain La Quemada through the development of known regional societies. The achievements of ancient communities in northern Mesoamerica were already remarkable without requiring unknown influences. Their ability to construct complex settlements in challenging environments demonstrates a level of adaptation and organization that deserves recognition. Still, the unanswered questions remain. Because archaeology often reveals what people built, but not always why they built it. A stone platform can show us where ceremonies may have taken place, but not the emotions of the people who gathered there. A defensive wall can reveal concerns about conflict, but not the fears or hopes of those who stood behind it. The stones tell part of the story. The people themselves remain harder to find. There is also something unusual about the location of La Quemada. Rising above the surrounding landscape, the site creates a feeling of isolation. Standing among the ruins today, it is easy to imagine why ancient communities may have chosen this place. The view extends across valleys and mountains, connecting the settlement with the vast environment around it. Was this connection part of its purpose? Did the builders choose this location because of strategic advantages, spiritual significance, or both? Many ancient societies viewed mountains and elevated places as locations closer to the divine. High places became spaces where humans could interact with forces beyond ordinary life. Across Mesoamerica, landscapes were often considered alive, filled with meaning and sacred presence. Could La Quemada have been designed with a similar understanding? The answer remains uncertain. Modern visitors see the remains of a remarkable civilization, but they encounter only fragments of a much larger story. The voices of those who lived here have vanished, leaving behind architecture that invites interpretation, but resists complete explanation. La Quemada continues to stand above the valleys of Zacatecas, its walls weathered by centuries of sun, wind, and silence. It remains a place caught between history and mystery, a settlement that reveals the abilities of its builders, yet hides the deeper reasons behind their choices. A city that shows signs of power and organization, yet leaves behind no clear explanation for its rise or disappearance. And as researchers continue to study its stones, its artifacts, and the landscape around it, one question continues to echo across the ancient ruins. What stories are still hidden within La Quemada, waiting for the past to finally reveal what was lost? Leaving behind the forgotten cities of the Americas, our exploration now crosses vast distances and enters the ancient landscapes of Persia, where the remains of one of history's greatest empires still stand beneath the open sky. Here, among the dry plains and distant mountains of modern-day Iran, an ancient capital rests in silence, a place created by a ruler who would change the course of history, yet whose original vision remains surrounded by unanswered questions. Across a wide valley, scattered stone columns rise from the earth. Weathered pathways lead between empty platforms. A solitary tomb stands against the horizon, its simple design contrasting with the immense power once associated with the place. This is Pasargadae. Built more than 2,500 years ago, Pasargadae was the first capital of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, one of the largest and most influential civilizations of the ancient world. Founded by Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BC, the city became a symbol of a new era, one defined by expansion, administration, and a unique approach to governing a vast and diverse population. But today, Pasargadae feels almost impossibly quiet. The empire that once stretched across 3 continents has disappeared. The ceremonies, political decisions, and royal processions that filled these spaces are gone. What remains are fragments of stone and a landscape that continues to raise questions about the people who built it. Why was this location chosen as the birthplace of a new empire? What meanings were hidden within its unusual architecture? And what secrets might still remain beneath the ruins of the first great capital of Persia? The story of Pasargadae begins with Cyrus the Great, a figure who became legendary not only for his military achievements but also for the way he shaped imperial rule. Around 550 BC, Cyrus established the Achaemenid Empire after defeating the Medes and expanding Persian influence across the ancient Near East. Unlike many conquerors of the ancient world, Cyrus developed a reputation in later historical traditions as a ruler who allowed different peoples within his empire to maintain aspects of their own cultures and religious practices. His approach to governance became one of the defining characteristics associated with the Achaemenid period. Pasargadae was meant to reflect this new vision of power. Rather than creating a capital dominated by massive defensive walls, the city was designed as an open royal landscape. Gardens, palaces, ceremonial spaces, and carefully arranged structures were spread across the plain, creating an environment where architecture and nature existed together. This design was unlike many other ancient capitals. The city did not simply display military strength, it presented an image of harmony, order, and royal authority. One of the most famous features of Pasargadae is the tomb traditionally believed to belong to Cyrus the Great. Standing alone on the plain, the structure appears remarkably simple. 6 layers of stone create a stepped base, supporting a small chamber above. There are no enormous statues, no elaborate carvings covering the surface, and no overwhelming displays of wealth. Its simplicity has made it one of the most recognizable monuments of the ancient world. But it has also created questions. Why would one of history's most powerful rulers choose such a modest resting place? Was the design meant to reflect humility, religious beliefs, or a deeper symbolic meaning? Did the structure contain influences from earlier cultures, combining traditions from different parts of the ancient world? Researchers have studied the tomb for centuries, and while many agree it was likely connected to Cyrus, some details remain uncertain. Ancient sources provide descriptions of Cyrus's burial, but archaeology cannot answer every question about the intentions behind the monument. The mystery continues not because nothing is known, but because the surviving evidence leaves room for interpretation. This is true throughout Pasargadae. The palace complexes reveal a fascinating blend of artistic influences. Stone columns, relief carvings, and architectural elements suggest connections with cultures throughout the ancient world, including Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Egypt. The Achaemenid Empire was built from many peoples, and its architecture reflected that diversity. But this raises another question. Was Pasargadae designed as a celebration of Persian identity, or as a statement that the empire itself represented a union of many civilizations? Perhaps it was both. The Achaemenid rulers understood the power of symbols. Architecture was not simply functional. It communicated ideas about legitimacy, order, and the relationship between the king and the universe. At Pasargadae, even the arrangement of spaces may have carried meaning. The royal gardens, known as paradisa, a term that would later influence the word paradise, were carefully organized spaces that represented control over nature. Water channels, plants, and pathways created a vision of an ideal landscape shaped by human intention. To the ancient Persians, a garden was not merely decoration. It could represent balance, abundance, and the ability of a ruler to bring order to the world. Yet, the full meaning of Pasargadae remains difficult to recover. The Achaemenid Empire left behind inscriptions and monuments, but much of the ancient Persian worldview has been filtered through later civilizations and historical accounts. Some traditions were preserved, while others disappeared completely. This has allowed speculation to surround certain aspects of the city. Some alternative theories suggest that Pasargadae may have been aligned with astronomical concepts or hidden symbolic systems connected to ancient knowledge of the cosmos. Others have suggested that the city's design contained deeper mathematical or spiritual principles that modern researchers have not fully recognized. These ideas remain debated. Most historians explain the city through the known practices of Achaemenid architecture, royal symbolism, and ancient Persian religious traditions. But the fascination remains because ancient builders often created spaces with meanings that extended far beyond their practical functions. A palace was not only a palace. A garden was not only a garden. A tomb was not only a tomb. Each structure could represent ideas about life, death, power, and humanity's place within the universe. Another mystery surrounding Pasargadae is the fate of the city itself. After Cyrus's death, the Persian capital remained important, but over time, its significance declined as later rulers established new centers of power. The city of Persepolis eventually became the more famous ceremonial heart of the Achaemenid Empire. When Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC, much of the Achaemenid world was transformed. Persepolis was burned, political structures collapsed, and a new era began. Pasargadae, however, survived in a quieter way. Its stones remained scattered across the landscape, slowly weathering through centuries of changing civilizations. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Pasargadae is not simply what happened there, but what was lost. The people who walked through its gardens understood the city in ways modern visitors cannot fully recreate. They knew the rituals performed in its halls, the meanings behind its symbols, and the stories connected to each carefully placed stone. Today, we can study the architecture, examine inscriptions, and reconstruct parts of its history. But can we truly understand the world that created it? Standing among the ruins, one can still sense the ambition behind Pasargadae. This was a place built at the beginning of an empire that would reshape the ancient world. It was a statement that a new power had arrived, one capable of bringing together distant lands and diverse peoples under a single vision. Yet, the city also carries a strange feeling of absence. The empire that created it is gone. The voices that filled its halls have disappeared. The meanings behind some of its designs remain uncertain. Was Pasargadae simply a royal capital, carefully planned to express the authority of Cyrus the Great? Or did its layout and architecture contain deeper messages about Persian beliefs, the cosmos, and the nature of kingship? The stones offer clues, but they do not reveal everything. And perhaps that is what keeps Pasargadae alive, not only as a monument to what humanity once achieved, but as a reminder of how much remains hidden beneath the surface of history. Across the silent plains of ancient Persia, the ruins continue to wait. And the question remains, what forgotten stories are still buried within Pasargadae, waiting for the past to finally speak?